This is Cheryl Manley from Sharing Love of Paper. I'm so glad you could join me for another card making class today. Today I'm demonstrating two fun aperture cards that I call a keyhole aperture and a pop-through circle with latch. Today's projects started with a set of papers called Garden Poetry. Such pretty colors. We'll be using this first one for our first project. Oh, I didn't show you the backs. They are the same colors, but more of a watercolor wash effect. The ribbon I'm using is this shiny Berry Burst ribbon. It was a part of the Garden Poetry suite. The other materials we'll be using are Berry Burst ink, a sentiment from the So Sincere set of stamps. This has been discontinued, but you can use any sentiment stamp you wish. I also used several dies from this set called Sweet Words and Labels. It was designed to go with the Winnie the Pooh set called Silly Old Bear, but the dies themselves are great shapes for any paper crafting project. It also has little acorns and oak leaves that would be great for fall projects. I strongly recommend getting this set even if you, like me, don't need the Silly Old Bear. Now for the first project, a keyhole aperture card. We'll need a basic white card base that's 5.5 by 8.5. Later I realized I also need another piece that's 1.5 by 3.5. We'll need a quarter sheet of Berry Burst cardstock, 4.25 by 5.5, a 1/6 sheet of the patterned paper, 4 by 6, and a 5-inch piece of the Berry Burst ribbon. And then I have this little brad in a color that coordinates. I don't know where I got it. It's been in my stash for years. Everything else is from Stampin' Up, and the images are copyright by them. I've already gotten started, so I'll bring in my pieces and show you what I did. The first thing I did was to take the largest piece of white cardstock and score it in half at 4.25 to form my card base. Then I took the patterned paper piece, trimmed 3/4 inch off the top, and arranged the largest piece so there was the same amount of border all around, and taped it in place with removable tape. Then I took the second and third from the smallest of these nested oval die shapes, this one and this one. For this part I used the smaller of those two, and I just die cut that piece through the card front, again holding it in place with removable tape. Notice that I did not glue the patterned paper to the white cardstock because I want to be able to separate the two pieces. Next I took my Berry Burst cardstock and trimmed it by 1/8 inch on the top and on one side so that my piece was 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and I have these little pieces left over. Then I used the larger of my two dies to die cut two shapes from the center, making sure to leave enough room around the edge so it can still work as a mat for my patterned paper, though not very much of it will show. Now that I have those two pieces cut out, I'm going to take my scissors and just trim off these pieces so they won't be seen there in the middle. Now I can glue this in place and add this one in place, and I'll have the first part of the card front made. But before I do that, I want to talk about this piece. This is what's going to form the keyhole cover. I'll have it like this. The ribbon will be sort of a pull tab, and I'll add the brad near the top so it can rotate open to show the keyhole aperture through which we'll see this. Notice this white is the piece I cut from the card front. I just glued it to one of the Berry Burst pieces and stamped my sentiment with Berry Burst ink. Again, you can use any sentiment you want. Before I glue this together, I want to get the mechanism put together. The first thing I did was took my ribbon, made a loop, and used regular transparent tape to hold that in place. Now I'm going to use glue to attach my patterned paper piece to the Berry Burst mat over top of that. I'll put glue around the outside of this. It actually could have looked pretty if I used the back side, but this is what I chose this time. I'm going to put a bit of extra glue here to ensure the ribbon stays in place. I'll arrange it carefully, and then I'm ready to add it. I want to make sure that I can cover the hole with it, but I want it up far enough so I have room to add my brad. I could use a pokey tool, or even a small punch, but I'm just going to use the tip of my scissors to just barely poke through both layers so that I can get my brad in place. I'll just poke my brad through and then open the legs on the back to keep it in place. So there is my mechanism. I wanted to make sure that was done before gluing it to the card front so that the brad legs will be hidden by the card front. Now I'll go ahead and glue my mat, adding glue all around the edge and near the holes. I'll go ahead and close my card front because that makes it easier to see where my edges are, so I can get this lined up with the same amount showing around the edges. I'll rotate this open to glue this one so that I can see to line up the inside apertures. I want glue all around the edge and around the edge of the aperture. I want to make sure the brad legs will be hidden, then I line everything up, checking not just the edges but also the centers. Now I'll add the inside sentiment. Once again, I want to get it perfectly lined up, so I'll place it on the inside, making sure it's lined up in the center of the aperture. There's a little glue here where I had used the removable tape, so I'll quickly remove that. Now there's my card. I want to put a little something in the center, maybe a little sentiment, just to add a bit more interest. Also, I had thought to bring these scraps in and arrange them to make a nice border at the bottom, but I see that would mean there'd be no room for personalizing the card. I could just use these top and bottom, but I think I'll just leave it as is. I'll go ahead and create a sentiment for the front, and I'll be right back. Okay, I created this sentiment using white cardstock and Berry Burst ink. I used this sentiment, Thinking of You, from the Right Words stamp set. Again, you can use whatever you have. Then I die cut it using another die from the Sweet Words and Labels die set, this time using the smallest of the long dies. Then I took a blending tool, you could also use a sponge dauber, and I just added ink around the edge. Now I'm going to add this with some mini Stampin' Dimensionals, but I want to make sure that they don't go past the edge of my keyhole cover. I'll put one there, and there, and there. Then I'll just peel off the backing papers and add it right about there. Thinking of You. So there's the keyhole aperture card. You can rotate the keyhole cover to see through to the inside, and of course you can open it as usual to see the personal message that you can add on the inside. For card number 2, I'm using the same paper set, but I'm also using a bit of these foil sheets called Garden Textures. They're kind of a metallic with a bit of texture to them, more like cardstock weight. They come in these 3 colors, 2 of each in the package. In addition to that, I'll be using the Sweet Words and Labels dies I used before. I'll also be using a few older sets. This beautiful butterflies set had small butterfly dies that are perfect for this project, though the current Butterfly Flight hot foil die set would be gorgeous. I'm again using the Right Words stamp set for my sentiment. Of course, you can use any sentiment you like. And I'm using the Changing Leaves hybrid embossing folder, since I don't yet have the Paradise Garden hybrid embossing folder that goes with this set of papers. In addition, I'm using a couple of punches, a 2-inch circle punch and a 1 3/4 scalloped circle punch. You could use the scalloped blooms die set, but would need to use a slightly larger circle puncher die then. I'll just set these aside and get right to it. This card will be a little bit different. I'm making what I call a pop-through circle card with Latch. I first saw something similar in a video by Karen Titus from Stamping on the Back Porch. I'll be punching a circle aperture, but it will be used quite differently than other apertures that we've made. This is what I'll need for this card: a 4 1/4 by 11 piece of white cardstock, a 4 by 6 piece of patterned paper, the green this time, a 4 by 4 piece of shaded spruce cardstock, a smaller piece of white cardstock, this is 3 1/2 by 4 1/4, a small piece of that gorgeous pink Garden Textures, this one is 3 by 4, and a piece that is 2-inch square of the same patterned paper, and finally a piece of basic black cardstock that is 2 by 1 1/2 or so. I will also use some shaded spruce ink. For my card base, I'm going to be using this 11-inch long piece, except that I'll start by trimming 1/4 inch off the end. Then I'll score the remaining piece at 2 inches and at 6 1/2 inches, and fold them as mountain folds. Save that 1/4 inch piece, we'll use it. For the patterned paper, I cut 1 3/4 inch off, then I cut a piece that was 4 inches. This left me with a 1/4 inch strip. I took the 1 3/4 inch piece and inked the edges of it. This is just that folded card base that I made. Make sure the small flap is on the outside like this. I simply glued the 1 3/4 piece to this small flap, making sure I had the same border all the way around. Then I opened the lower flap so it would be out of the way and used my 2-inch circle punch to punch a hole. I lined it up so it was about halfway and cut through all layers. It would have been easier to open it up and make sure the fold was centered so I didn't have to punch through so many layers, but it did work. Then I used the same punch with my smaller piece of cardstock and punched a circle from one corner of it. From the remaining piece of white cardstock, using the stamp from the right words, I stamped my sentiment with shaded spruce ink and then die cut it using the smallest of these longer dies, again from the Sweet Words and Labels set. That gave me my sentiment. Next, I took the 4x4 piece of cardstock and the Changing Leaves embossing folder. You can use any embossing folder with leaves. This is a hybrid embossing folder, but I took the die out and just used it as a standard 3D embossing folder. Now I'll just glue this piece on the lower portion of this card, trying to ensure that it's centered. Okay, there's that. That's what I have so far. Now I'm going to quickly grab my shaded spruce ink. I meant to do this ahead of time, but I forgot. I'm just going to ink the edges of both of these pieces. I'll speed this up so it doesn't take so long. I'm going to put this larger piece right here on the inside. I'll go ahead and glue that in place. Again, I want it centered on that section of the card. And then I'll just glue this at the other end, just right here. All right, so there's the inside of my card. Now for this circle. Using the 1 3/4 inch scalloped punch, I punched this from the 2-inch square piece of patterned paper. Then I inked the edges with shaded spruce like I did with the others. Now I'll just glue this in the center of my white circle. Then I'm going to glue it right here. I'll get this the way I want it, then turn it over and draw with a pencil right along the edge. That shows me where I want the glue. I'm going to go ahead and line this up. I just want this lined up like that, and then I'll just press that to set the glue. This is designed so you just pull it through to open it and push it back through to close it. Okay, now I need that 1/4 inch strip of white that I cut off the card base. I'll put glue on this and add it to my card. Now, where do I want that? Up just a bit. Is that right? I think just a bit more. Okay, here's where I want this piece. And then I'll go ahead and put this. Shoot, it's not quite straight. Let me fix that. Okay, I'll put that there. I think I want to use some mini Stampin' Dimensionals with that. Okay, I'll just put one on each end and a couple in the middle. Then I'll go ahead and pull off the backing papers and put my sentiment here, lining it up with a border strip. Now from the pink, using my beautiful butterflies cutting dies, I used these 2 butterfly dies to cut 3 butterflies out of the pink. Then I used these 2 to cut bodies out of the black cardstock. This is what I ended up with. Some pink butterfly pieces and some black bodies. I'll be sure to use the multi-purpose glue for this since it's a glossy surface. I'm just going to add a bit of glue to the center of my pink butterfly where the body needs to go. Oops, got a bit more glue than I wanted, so I'll remove a bit of the excess with a paper towel. Then I'll just bring my butterfly body in and hold it in place for the glue to set. Okay, once the body is on there, I'm just going to pull up the wings a little bit to add some dimension. I'm going to put one butterfly here, I think oriented that way. Then I can put a couple more, maybe this one here and that one there. If I bring this up a little bit, it can work for my latch. Okay, I'll go ahead and add my glue. I'm just putting glue in the middle where the bodies are. I want the wings to be loose so they can have a bit of dimension. Now for this one, I want to use a little piece of the edge of my mini Stampin' Dimensionals. I'll just use my scissors to cut a little piece of this, and I'll add it near the top of the butterfly body. Then I'll add a little glue down by the tail. Then I'll put this here. The little bit of dimension helps it sit above the greeting. So again with this one, I'm just putting glue down the center. I want just the wing to overlap the top piece, but I don't want the body to. Now you can see that that wing holds it closed, but I can easily open it. So there's my pop-through circle with latch, and here's my first one, my keyhole aperture, my 2 cards for today. Now for the close-ups. I do hope you've enjoyed this video class. As always, as an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love to have you choose me as demonstrator when you make purchases from Stampin' Up! I would earn a small commission on each purchase you make, but that would not affect your price. And each month you make a purchase with me, you'll receive an email of instructions for that month's class cards in PDF form as my gift to you. You can check the description below for links to some of the materials used in this video, or substitutes for some, and a general link for shopping for Stampin' Up! Products. And if you click that thumbs up, leave me a comment, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so, you'll make my day. Have a great one.